Nevşehir Province, Turkey, 1963. A Tuesday afternoon. The air in the basement smells of dry dust and old crumbling plaster. A local man stands in the dim light holding a sledgehammer. He isn't looking for treasure, he is chasing a chicken. The bird has squeezed through a crack in the masonry, disappearing behind a renovated wall. Frustrated, the man swings the hammer. The impact cracks the stone. A second swing brings the wall down. But the chicken doesn't run into the next room. It vanishes into a void. The man steps forward, peering through the jagged hole he has just created. He expects to see dirt, or perhaps the foundation of his house. Instead, he sees a hallway. It is carved perfectly from the rock, sloping downward into a darkness that seems to have no bottom. He doesn't know it yet, but he has just broken the seal on the deepest secret in Anatolia. This isn't a cave. It is a skyscraper built in reverse. He is standing at the precipice of an inverted metropolis, a hive deep enough to swallow the Statue of Liberty whole, yet completely invisible from the surface. Beneath his feet lies a city that once housed 20,000 people, complete with schools, chapels, stables, and wineries. It is a masterpiece of engineering, born not from ambition, but from absolute, suffocating terror. Most great structures in human history are built to be seen. They are monuments to ego. This place is different. The beauty of Derinkuyu is its camouflage. The cost was a life lived without the sun. To understand why anyone would bury themselves alive, we must go back to the 7th century AD. The horizon is burning. The smell of smoke from torched villages drifts across the flat Anatolian plains. The ground vibrates with the thunderous rhythm of Arab cavalry. In the history of architecture, we usually look for a visionary, a king, a pharaoh, a Vanderbilt, someone with the ego to demand a monument. But there is no king here. The visionary of Derinkuyu was collective panic. It was the Phrygians, and later the Byzantine Christians, realizing a terrifying truth. The surface world had become a slaughterhouse. To stay above ground was to die. So they looked down. They looked at the ground beneath their feet and saw a miracle of geology. The earth here is made of volcanic tuff, a soft, porous rock that yields easily to a metal tool. They looked at this stone and saw a bunker. They made an obsessive, radical demand of their civilization, the decision to abandon the light. The dying dream of these people wasn't to rule the world. It was simply to disappear from it. But the gamble was absolute. By committing an entire population to the dark, they created a binary reality. They were building a ship that would never move. If the ventilation failed, everyone would die. If the wells were poisoned, everyone would die. They were betting their existence on the belief that the earth would protect them better than the sky ever could. By the year 780, the work is consuming them. We are now 85 meters underground. The air is thick with white dust. It coats the eyelashes. It pastes the lungs. It settles on the meager rations of food. The only light comes from the flickering acrid flames of linseed oil lamps. These are the invisible hands, the excavators. They didn't have dynamite. They didn't have hydraulic drills. They had iron pickaxes, shovels, and desperation. The geology that saved them also tortured them. Tough rock is soft when it is first cut, slicing like hard cheese. But once it is exposed to oxygen, it undergoes a chemical change. It hardens. it calcifies. The city was literally hardening around them as they built it, forcing a race against the stone itself. Consider the logistics of this excavation. To build a city for 20,000 people, millions of tons of debris had to be hauled up by hand through staircases barely wide enough for a single man. The construction site was a vertical mine where the miners lived in the shaft. The physical toll was catastrophic. We have to imagine the silicosis rotting their lungs from the dust, the lack of vitamin D softening their bones, the sheer caloric burn of hauling heavy rock vertically while living on siege rations. They were carving out their own survival, one bucket of dirt at a time, moving deeper into the crushing weight of the world. But this isn't just a hole in the ground. Derinkuyu is a machine. It is a life support submarine made of rock. The spine of this machine is the ventilation shaft. It is a massive vertical aorta plunging 55 meters deep, cutting through all 18 levels of the city. Without this shaft, the machine suffocates. The deeper you go into the crust of the earth, the hotter it gets, and the thinner the air becomes. This shaft captured the wind from the surface and forced it down, circulating breath to the very bottom levels. It served a dual purpose. The shaft tapped directly into the water table below. Crucially, the wells were accessible from the tunnels, but hidden from the surface. An enemy army riding overhead could die of thirst right on top of the city, never knowing that 20,000 people were drinking fresh water just beneath their horses' hooves. And then there is the defense mechanism, the valves of the machine. Throughout the tunnels, massive millstones block the corridors. These are 1,000-pound wheels of solid rock, taller than a man. They operated as blast doors. But if you look closely at the design, you see the genius of paranoia. They could only be opened or closed from the inside. A small hole in the center allowed a defender to thrust a spear through, keeping attackers at bay, while the stone was rolled into place. It was a one-way valve for survival. Once the city was sealed, it became a tomb for the living, impervious to the dead. Imagine the machine in operation. It is day 14 of a siege. The great stone doors are rolled shut. The city is sealed. The air begins to get heavy. The temperature rises to 90 degrees inside the tunnels. The smell is overwhelming. Unwashed bodies, livestock, and fear. This is the crisis. It is a crisis of mathematics. The math of survival in a closed loop is unforgiving. You have 20,000 human beings, plus their livestock, goats, chickens, sheep, all consuming oxygen in a finite space. The ledger of life and death is balanced on a razor's edge. How much grain is left in the storage jars? How much oil remains for the lamps? If the oil runs out, the darkness is absolute. And then there is the sanitary crisis. How do you manage the waste of a metropolis with no sewage treatment? Every chamber pot, every clay jar of waste had to be managed, stored, or carried up in the stifling heat. But the psychological horror outweighed the physical misery. Imagine sitting in the dark, 80 meters down, listening. You can hear the enemy above. You can feel the thud of their boots on the ceiling of your world. You are listening to your own homes being looted and burned on the surface, while you hide in the silence below, waiting for them to leave. Waiting for the math of their patience to run out before the math of your oxygen does. For centuries, this cycle repeated. Hide, survive, emerge. Hide, survive, emerge. But in 1923, the machine stopped. Following the population exchange between Greece and Turkey, the Christians who lived in these regions were expelled. The people who knew the secrets of the tunnels left. The city lost its purpose as a bunker. The tunnels went silent, but the structure remained. The local Turks who stayed behind didn't live in the dark city, but they understood its utility. The machine changed its function. The constant 55-degree temperature maintained by the insulating rock made it the perfect refrigerator. The adaptation was swift. The chapels, where prayers were once whispered in terror, were filled with potatoes. The schools became warehouses for lemons. The stables became actual stables again, but for farm animals that would see the sun every day. The city survived not as a home, but as a cellar for the surface world. It became a cold storage unit, preserving food instead of people. The terror drained away, leaving only the dark and the cold. Today, the tunnels are lit by electric bulbs. Tourists stoop, walking single file through the corridors, snapping photos with their phones. The claustrophobia is still there, pressing in on your chest, reminding you of the millions of tons of rock hanging over your head. As we walk through these narrow veins of the earth, we are left with a philosophical conclusion: survival through invisibility. Most of the great structures of antiquity scream for attention. The pyramids, the Colosseums, the Parthenons, they all shout, "Look at me! Look at how powerful we were!" Derinkuyu screams the opposite. Its architecture says, "Don't look for me." It is a monument to the resilience of the frightened. It proves that humanity will endure any condition, tolerate any darkness, and move any amount of stone just to take one more breath. Standing at the bottom of the ventilation shaft, looking up, you can see it. A tiny, distant circle of blue sky. It is a perfect geometric dot of light, framing a cloud or a passing bird. For centuries, for thousands of people born and dying in the rock, that blue dot was their only connection to the world. That dot was the only proof that the sun still existed. The city survived, the people survived, but the cost was high. It required humanity to become like insects, burrowing into the dark, waiting for the storm above to pass.